In video games, there has always been a wide array of female characters in the way that they are portrayed. It is perfectly fine to have damsels in distress, but it is also fine to have female characters that are a bit stronger and independent. But the gamer is always looking for something to complain about, and now they're talking about how Silent Hill has never given women more agency, and the new game is going to be such a step in the right modern direction. But before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, Silent Hill has always had a lot of different types of women within the games, but because they were not just strong and independent and they didn't need a man, that isn't good enough for them. But now, the latest game is, of course, they're saying giving women more agency, and that's why this is the direction that they should go in the future. So it says, with the unveiling of Silent Hill F's debut trailer last week came plenty of new information about the newest installment to the long-running horror series. I love Silent Hill, many other people love Silent Hill, and I love the idea of having a female protagonist in a Silent Hill game. There's absolutely no problem with that. But there have been so many different women within in these games, and they are all vastly different, and that's great. Not every woman has to be the cookie cutter Mary Sue that we see in modern day entertainment. I'm not saying that's the case for Silent Hill F at all whatsoever. It does not seem that way, but that's the way the media wants these female characters to be portrayed. It says, we found out that the M-rated game will have a female protagonist, seemingly a student, and will also be the first Silent Hill game set in Japan. There's still a lot we don't know, and there are reasons to wonder whether this will live up to expectations, but I have a good feeling about this one. It says this is partly because the game's writer was explicit about his motivations in recent Silent Hill transmission, best known for his critically acclaimed When They Cry series of visual novels. It says, though, that he had said up until now, I have played every Silent Hill game, and one thing I noticed is that many of the female characters are put through a great deal of suffering throughout their lives, which is why I thought if this game was going to have a female protagonist, then I want her to be able to make her own decisions for better or worse amid her struggles. I don't want her to be pulled along by the story, but to find her own answers. It says, though, that there are plenty of firsts in Silent Hill F. Obviously, it's not set in Silent Hill or in the United States at all, but at the same time, the spirit of the game described in this transmission feels very Silent Hill, and I do agree, it does feel like Silent Hill. It doesn't feel like they're taking it in some, like, new modern direction when it comes to the atmosphere, but it, of course, talks about Silent Hill 2. There are a lot of people who have always been very unhappy with that game, specifically about James and the representation of women within it, because you are seeing these women through James' eyes, and that means that some of them are very overly sexualized because they are supposed to represent his, like, deepest desires and, of course, his guilt. And they have turned that into, oh, he's just misogynist and he never liked women or cared about women or, like, respected women, which is an insane take to have. But they're basically saying, because we had just gotten the Silent Hill 2 remake, which touches on all of this internalized misogyny, now that we're getting a female protagonist that has agency, that is amazing. And hey, again, I'm fine with having a female protagonist, and I think it's really cool what we've seen so far with Silent Hill F, but let's not act like we always have to have the one cookie cutter type of woman in a video game. We can have damsels in distress. We can have women who make mistakes, who actually act like they're human. We can have women who, yes, can stand on their own and make decisions for themselves, but I am curious to see how decisions are going to play out in this game, because he does kind of specify how, for better or worse, she'll be able to make her decisions, and I wonder if she's actually going to be able to really mess up the storyline and kind of ruin her, I guess we'll just call it, progress within this game by making a few bad decisions. It says, while the series has generally been very sympathetic to women and their collective pain and trauma, there is a reading that it also thrives on the suffering of women. That is also crazy, because Silent Hill is based on the suffering of both men and women. Are you saying that the men within this series do not suffer at all? One of the major selling points of Silent Hill is just plain and simply suffering for all. It uses gendered body horror in women's stories as tools for development of male characters. Yes, this is true, but that's going to happen with any male character that happens to have an important female that is a part of his story, whether that's a wife or a daughter or a sister. It's like you can't have a female character who goes through trauma as well within a video game just because the playable protagonist is a male. That's just like a very wild take, in my opinion. It says, how will Silent Hill F's protagonist be given agency? We don't really know yet, but of course they're going to praise it to the high heavens because they think that it could be a modern take on Silent Hill. Perhaps we're more likely to see this manifest in the game's narrative and how she'll be responsible for her own fate instead of being a victim of the way others treat her. That's certainly a way for a character to be given more agency without the mechanics of the game having to change, but I'm not convinced that this will mean the series is going to see a mechanical change that allows its protagonist to make decisions that impact the narrative, since this isn't a feature we've seen before, but the game's synopsis does say this is a tale about a beautiful yet terrifying choice. Does she make this choice or do we? Yeah, we don't really know what's going to happen. They are highlighting choice though, so I think that that is probably going to be something that we see, even if it's only one big choice, maybe halfway through the game or right at the end of the game. Regardless though, I think that this game sounds cool, though the way that the media is already painting this game versus the other games really infuriates me personally because the Silent Hill series has always been so phenomenal, and I think that this game will probably be great as well, but it's like they're trying to denigrate these past Silent Hill games in order to prop up this new one on a pedestal just because it features a leading female who they think is going to have more agency. And really, we don't know a lot of details about this, but it's just really shitty that they are taking this legacy of this beloved series and they're saying, oh, those games feature females without agency and misogynistic elements, and these women haven't actually been able to make choices for themselves and they're just sexual objects for men to desire. But oh, this one is going to be so much better and it's going to be so much cooler. When it comes to Silent Hill, we've seen many complaints about the way that women are depicted over the decades. Here's one article from December 2023 talking about Silent Hill 2 and the horrors of womanhood. I love Silent Hill 2. I remember booting up my stepdad's PS2 while home alone, fumbling my way through the puzzles and strange fight mechanics. However, when we start to analyze their characters, we start to understand what they represent. Each female Silent Hill 2 character represents some aspect of womanhood that is grotesque and horrific. They talk about how Maria's character exists almost entirely as wish fulfillment for James, and how femininity is constantly objectified. In Silent Hill 2, the mannequins have a feminine frame, the monsters move provocatively. Hell, our first introduction to Pyramid Head is a scene of him inflicting sexual violence against one of the mannequins. We also have this article talking about how Silent Hill thrives on the suffering of women. As a woman myself, I have absolutely no problem with women in video games and movies and TV shows being used as narrative devices. Sure, I don't think it needs to be that way all of the time, but it's very clearly, in Silent Hill 2's case, a case of a man going through many different forms of trauma and mental afflictions, and things like his guilt and his lust are kind of on display throughout the game, and it's supposed to make you a little bit uncomfortable. And I think that that is a big reason why Silent Hill has gotten so popular, because it does make you question the way that some characters are represented and some of the storylines, and also the state of mind of the character like James. So we'll have to see what happens and how the media is going to continue to paint this game. But right now they are basically denigrating the legacy of Silent Hill and trashing some of the male characters in order to prop up this new game with this lead female character that is finally going to get some agency. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.